Your game is built on a foundation of scattered Google Docs, disconnected spreadsheets, maybe a little bit of Notion sprinkled in there, and it all lives in one of the members of your team's head. Well, it works until it doesn't.
But because we build games that grow and that iterate constantly, that's also why it's so hard to maintain that content.
This, my friend, is content chaos. And it's not just a workflow problem, but it is eating up your production budget without you knowing. Thankfully for us, we are joined by Jill Vanparys, CEO and founder of Grimoire, a platform built to bring structure, connection, and clarity to the content that powers your game.
With this, it's not only beautiful, but it can also be practical, because then you can really navigate within those connections.
And in this episode, you are going to learn how to run a 5-minute audit on your project right now to find out if your content structure is fragile. What object-oriented UX is, why scattered docs aren't just messy, but they're a liability that compounds every single time your game changes. When to transition into something that is a more sustainable system. So if you are an indie dev building anything with real depth, an RPG, a deck builder, a narrative game, then you've ever spent hours digging through old documentation wondering why something broke, this episode is for you. Welcome to Freaking Cool Indies. Jill, thank you so much for joining Freaking Cool Indies. I am very, very excited to speak with you. We have been, this episode has been in play for many, many months, and to finally have you on the other side of my screen, I am absolutely thrilled and excited to be able to talk with you a little bit more about content chaos and why indie developers, especially those who are creating games with more in-depth systems, RPGs, strategy games, deck builders, narratives, why they really need to think about their content and think about how are they organizing everything so that they don't get all the way down to the finish line and a quest marker from early on the game kind of breaks things without them knowing. So it should be a really interesting episode, again, talking through both like the game design and development side of things, but then obviously how that can impact a team from the time or the dollar figures as they're going back and cleaning up these things, because we all know that like most things, data is easy to create and it often isn't easy to organize. As someone who uses far too many Google Sheets in Google Docs and everything else, and I'm trying to get better with my Notion setup, but we'll kind of dive into we'll dive into all of that. So Jill, how are you today?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here, and maybe it's good that it took us a while to set this up, because this is for me the perfect timing. We launched Grimoire, our platform, a month ago, and I'm so deep diving into all this system thinking and data management, and I love to organize things. So hey, anytime you need help, I love to talk about
Let's
systems and
Let's
data.
do it. I'm getting better and better with my systems. And again, you come from a long line of an amazing experience. Obviously, like your LinkedIn will be in the description below. But congratulations on the launch of Grimoire. Again, it's a big feat. The platform looks absolutely fantastic. And again, I'm
Thanks.
excited to peel back all of your learnings as you've been building this platform, speaking with developers. Obviously, your own personal experience, which ultimately led you to saying like, hey, we need to solve this problem for these amazing developers here. So
Yeah,
let's
totally.
let's dive in, Jill. So before we go any further, I want to actually just define what it is that we're talking about, right? So in your opinion, what is content chaos? And I know that terminology, it comes from a great article that you posted on the blog on your website. Once again, I'll link it in the description because I think it also gives a lot of really cool context to things. But I want to hear more from you. How would you describe content chaos, and what is it that we're going to be digging into today?
Well, games are complex systems. That's the thing that is so cool about games, is that it's not like any other content creation element. It has so many systems behind it, and that's what makes the interactivity and how you build worlds from it. But behind the scenes, it's still a lot of scattered documents. We build those giant worlds on top of Miro boards and spreadsheets and Google Docs. And if you're good, then you have Notion or Confluence. And sometimes things are linked, but most of the time they're all separated files. And that's the chaos I talk about, because in between all those files are people, and they need to have meetings, and they need to have, like, you always have this glue person, who is knows everything in the back of your mind, like this is how everything connects. Your director or your designer, but uh it's in their head. So in the actual files, it's a chaos in the files. And we try our best, but because we build games that grow and that iterate constantly, that's also why it's so hard to maintain that content in a structured way. It's you when you start making a game, you have a clear idea of you think you have a clear idea of how the game will play, how the game will feel as your player experience, and so you set up your systems for that. But everybody knows that after, in prototype phase and pre-production, every phase you keep on changing things until you have those locks, those closed doors. But still, games only get good if you keep changing them. That's the thing, is that if you lock things in too early and you can't change them anymore, then you can't develop the game to make it feel better. Because if with every playthrough, with every user test, you learn and you adapt and you transform your game into the masterpieces they are. But that means that you're constantly changing the content as well. And that if that means that you're constantly like saving a new version of a Google Doc or a spreadsheet with four people looking at that same spreadsheet, then things will break, because it's manual work, and because it's built on systems. Everything is connected. Everything is connected in relationships, and it's those relationships that are very important to maintain.
Would a good example be something along the lines of, okay, I have all of my conversations in version 2 of spreadsheet 1, right? And then something happens, you do your playtest, you add a couple more things, you change things around, but now you're on version 3. But there's some random system that's looking at version 2 still, and it's not getting updated because it was just never, again, updated to say, hey, look at V3 now instead of V2. Is that like a very simplified way of something
That's a
that we...
simplified way, yeah. And it's also because you change your files. For example, if you are a game designer and you're writing your onboarding, and you write like every dialogue line that will come in every step of your onboarding process, for example, or what your character is saying at that moment, and also what you will be seeing, and you write that in Confluence, and it's clear, it's a document, it's a Google Doc or something like that, and you're in your creative mode. And then next thing you need to do is you need to translate that into a spreadsheet, because this is what your system will read. So you translate that into a spreadsheet, which is really like easy, because it's like copy paste, and then you test things out. You have users, you have players that play the game and they don't understand things. So you go back to the writing board and you change you put things in between, because you say like, okay, but this wasn't clear. Let's have this NPC come in here and say that. And so you put in that in between, but in the Excel, you put things in between, and then your developer is like, but no. If you put things in between, you can't do that, because I haven't scripted it like that. And then you have to say like there, red button, a red cell, like, okay, from here, go to line 173. And then you go to line 100 for 4 more lines, and then you have to go back to that line. And as a creative, as a game designer, for example, you lose your creativity at that moment. If at that moment you have to imagine what your player will feel or hear while you are typing in that Excel, this jumping lines, that's a conflict of yeah, brain sides, I think. That's like you can't stay creative. So that's an example of how things could break on the creative side, but also on the development side. Another part is that I strongly believe in scripts and templates, I call them, for what you build, is that you go back to look at what really the core elements of your game are and what they consist of. And that's your template for example, an NPC or a location. And you build all locations or all NPCs on that script you built. And that's almost holy, because from there on, everything that you, if you change something and you change it in the script, then everything that is connected to it will automatically change. And that's safe. But if you don't do that, if you have like 20 different templates for all different characters, you think, because each time you have like, oh, but now we have this kind of monster. Let's make a new class for that kind of monster. Oh, but wouldn't if it be cool if we had also some kind of vampires? And then you make another class for vampires. But there are a lot of things that they have in common. And if that is not connected, then changing something for the monsters is not changed for the vampires. But it could be valuable to change it for the vampires at the same time. And if you build a connection like these are all NPCs, and for every NPC, this is the truth or this is the framework I know they need to have. If then you change something, you you can build a system that flags what are the other parts you need to look at.
Mm. Very
And it's
cool. So
not,
again, it's the one telling you, saying, "Hey Jill," or "Hey developer," or "Hey team," right? Like you've gone ahead and changed this. Like here's three things that just broke. Like just go fix these now, or when you have time. But at least you know about it as opposed to it coming back later. Play
yeah,
testers, all of that. Like the it's proactive as opposed to reactive, basically.
yeah. And it's not only about the things that break, it's also about the information that is going through other people. Because um, think about all in the end of the project, you have your localization partners. And all the things you've built, the things you came up with is in the beginning of the project. And then you really know what you need to do and want to do. But all that content and context is lost on them. And then typically you need to like write context, take screenshots. This line is part of this conversation between these characters in this quest and this act. And actually, this one is really angry because of something that happened in the previous acts. And they don't know that, but it is important, for example, as a translator to know that. And if you keep all your content connected, you know that that line is connected to that dialogue, and they can quickly see that that dialogue has that character. And, for example, read just a few lines about that character, about that quest. And it all adds, it's because you have distributed teams and big teams or people that come in and go out. And the more you make sure that all your knowledge you have, your institutional knowledge of the game is safe somewhere. You don't waste time updating people, answering questions in Slack threads. Um, everybody has or can have a way of looking for that answer themselves.
Yeah, yeah, and again, going back to you had already kind of touched upon it before, but having that crucial information, whether it's context or system design, but when it's in the mind of one person, that's never a good thing
Hmm.
because again, that
No,
person could leave or God forbid something else happens to that individual, right? And now it's like, okay, cool, I have no idea how they did this, why they did this, what else did they touch or not touch, or I think it's important to have that type of stuff, especially as the team grows, right? It's one thing for, I'm a solo developer, and I have all of my own context, but obviously as that grows, even two, three, four, five plus people, then it just gets more and more complicated.
And it's also nice for the person who has all the knowledge in their head, because then they can keep continue creating and not constantly answering questions, you know? And one of the biggest threats, I think, also is the unknown unknown. That, as
Mm,
an, for example, an artist, you don't know what you don't know about the character you're designing, um, because you just read the brief, but maybe there's so much more you could be inspired by if you knew a bit more lore or a bit more background about the why certain systems are built in game systems. Yeah.
hmm hmm Awesome. Okay, so I'm 100% on board. I see the pain points here, right? I experience something very similar even in my 9 to 5, and that's not in game development. But again, I think this is something that is very global
Yeah.
across many things,
Yeah,
right? It
yeah,
is
yeah, it
the
is.
so many people are building, so many people are building with their own mind. So many people have their own context, but then it's often hard to get it into a spot that's not only easy for everyone to find, but already connected, which I think that alone sounds very amazing. So the question that I had for you, right? So obviously most teams probably feel organized enough, let's say, with something like a Google Docs, their spreadsheets, like they have their system, even if it's not perfect, they have their system. At what point would you either recommend someone to look at a more professional system, or just like at what point do you typically see the cracks start to form, and things start to break down that should really help with, like, hey, let's reduce this liability, get in front of it, and really kind of get in a proper system here.
2 points I think are dangerous. How to say? Is one is when we touched upon that earlier, is when the team grows and you have new people coming in. For example, if you would have a team and you have one narrative designer, and all of a sudden they need to go work part time, so we get in a second narrative designer. But that person has to dig through maybe 100 pages of or documents of Google Docs, like to know about everything that is going on. So that takes time, and that's you need that time no matter what. Onboarding people always takes time, but if you can just cut on that time, you are saving so much um, uh, yeah, money, but also frustration. There's much less frustration. And also, if you have a system like that, you can, if you have a clear, organized system, um, you don't have to all give it all at once. You can progressively also like share information. And the second part is when I see people iterating and continuing on iterating on a game, because games are all about experience, and while you are making a game, um, uh, looking at people play your game and then seeing what could improve. And then as a designer, you know what you need to change, but then often you have how do you call it in English? Like a blocker in development. It's a bottleneck,
Mm. Yep,
because
yep.
the development is busy with making the other features and the other systems and more uh, um, than other parts of your game. And then if you want to iterate again on that existing part, and you have to wait for developers, for example, then you are losing such valuable time, and you also cut short your iteration cycles.
Mm,
So if you find a way to make sure that as you keep creatives in charge, and action, they can do actionable things that help the game progress and iterate on that, your game will be better. So was that an answer to your question? I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
remember
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. It definitely was. And again, like the follow up to that I had, and when we're actually just even thinking about this in general, like what percentage would a developer even like what percentage of time back or money saved? Like why would a developer? What are some additional reasons why someone might even consider creating or spending the time to implement in a brand new system?
Because I know it's hard, and I know it takes so much time to start a new, like you said, like I'm now using Notion, to start using that, to putting all your content in, to get that up and running. So I've digged into the research, and if you look at the production time, you have the time you are building, you are creating your art, you're building your systems, really making the game. And then you have your creative time of iterating and writing and rewriting, or balancing and changing your stats. That iteration time has a lot of meetings, a lot of digging through information. And that iteration time takes from a total budget up to 40%. And uh, um, I believe that, no, I don't, I know that if you optimize for your meetings and your systems, that you can cut 20% there. And that's 20% in frustrating things. It's not being less creative. I'm not built, you don't need there's no AI that will do cool stuff. It's just a system that will make you have less meetings. So that means like 5% of your budget, if you look at it that way.
Yeah, and
Was
there's the
that
budget
clear,
side,
my
and then
answer?
no, that was very
Okay.
clear because again, you especially when we're talking about the marketing side, right, or the business side, it's often so many people, oh, I don't have time for it. There's so many other more important things that we should be doing, right? And again, going back to like if you can reduce down the meetings, if you can reduce down all of that time so that you have now it's just more time that you have to actually build the game, to polish the game, to make it the best possible one that it has, as opposed to spending that hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 20 hours re-going through documents, rewriting documents, just kind of creating these things as you develop and as other things just break because of it.
Yeah. And then you have the part of less bugs also, because you make less mistakes, not copy pasting constantly, you have less bugs. So that's also so valuable. If you have a QA team, for example, that you can just um, you don't need that much. And then in the end, when you are doing when you are, for example, going to translate, that's also where you save so much time. But also think about things like, imagine that you have um, a kind of wiki of your game. That wiki is already written, right? Because it is that documentation, it's that technical documentation, it's that system that you already have built in your documents, that can almost be like copy pasted to a website.
So we've obviously been talking about, and trust me, I am fully bought in on the benefits of having something like having a professional tool that can help, right? Now, if for whatever reason, a company doesn't have budget, a company couldn't do something that isn't as high level as getting something like Grimoire, how would you kind of mentor them or coach them on different ways that they can still use their internal systems but get something positive out of it?
Yeah, totally. I think what I said before, like for me, the base are those templates. Like,
Mm.
what are the basic objects in your game that keep on returning? And I would implore every team to actually uh, uh, think about those. Like in my game, try to find those objects, those nouns that make up your game. For example, a very simple uh, classic little game could be a game in which you have a quest with challenges and objectives, and things happen at locations, and you have NPCs, and you have items you can give and get. And this is like a very classic game, and the words I just said are your objects. And each of those objects, if you think about, but what do they actually, how are they connected to each other? And what is actually inside of each of those objects? If you do that workshop with your team, you already um, are prepared for, uh, that's already a very important structure to start from. And you, like this, you are prepared. And it could be on a Miro board or just a real whiteboard. Just, and the thing I didn't invent this. This is something that I've been using a lot of years already, just workshopping with other teams. Um, but the moment I thought like, hey, there's a name for it, was not that long ago, it was like a year ago or something. And the name is like object-oriented user experience, OOUX. And it's a name that was coined by Sophia Prater, and her way of thinking about objects and templates and relationships. She made it for websites and complex systems there. But if I translated it to, and how would I use it for games? And it really, really helps defining a structure. After you have like, if you have a one pager, for example, that describes your game, just go through that one pager and highlight every noun. And then find what objects all those nouns are. Like, oh, these are all locations. Oh, these are all NPCs. Ah, apparently we have, these are all weapons. And then go and structure that. And in my experience, a lot of creative people are like, yeah, but I don't work like that. I'm
Yeah.
creative and I
Yeah.
need my creative freedom to make something beautiful and engaging and good. And I totally agree, but disagree at the same time.
Yeah.
Because in my experience, I have been lucky enough to have people say, okay, I'll give it a try. So like, can you please like trust me and try using this structure just for once?
Yeah.
Um, and then it always makes me happy to see like it can help them be more creative later on as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100% agree with that. Again, I know for a fact, obviously everything is easier said than done, right? Because it's just like, oh, just like have a tight system of, and everything else is good there. But I do agree with the creativity part, because I think oftentimes, especially creatives, right, whether it's painters, musicians, artists, like game developers, whoever it is, it is like I want to be the one to free think, and then from there create my creation. But oftentimes I think having, when you have that template, or at least a bit of a box, then it still allows you to create within the confines. And oftentimes, at least again, this is my own experience, I know I've spoken to a few others about the similar feeling of it, but having at least some form of confines often helps with that creative experience, because now it's not just like a blank page, right? Or
No.
now I'm not reinventing the wheel every single time I need to do this version of
Yeah.
whatever the creative endeavor is,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like, all right, I know what I need to do. Now it's like, how can I get creative within that scope?
Yeah. And your developers will be so happy.
Yeah. You're not going back to them saying like, all right, everybody, for this NPC, we're switching it up. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. Or you
I-
knew before that you want to keep that open, so designed or they developed for keeping that open. So they're like,
Mhm.
yeah, we expected that.
How would you explain systems thinking to maybe like a creative lead, or honestly maybe someone like myself who, I do love systems, and I know systems are important, but I just want to write a great story, or I just want to ship a game, right? Like I'm not, I don't want to be thinking always in systems. I just want to create something cool. How would you kind of explain systems thinking to someone like myself?
I think the term can maybe be a bit overwhelming, but I think that all games are systems
Mhm.
in a way. So being in the video games industry already kind of makes you a system thinker, I think. You just maybe haven't thought about that because every game has has rules and every game has a flow and and a pacing and balancing, and those are all those are all systems. But sometimes you're just so used to thinking as in gameplay balancing or in storytelling that for you it feels so natural, because this is a system that you feel good in, that you know, that you own. That's how I think about the systems, and then adapting to this new kind of system thinking is just, it's a different content again. There was once a I think it was Tim Schafer that said, like, making a game is like you making a painting, but all of the paint is hanging in the air, and you are constantly shifting around all these little pieces of paint, and then at one point you say build, and everything drops down, and there's your picture. And that's what making a game is. I thought it's a very beautiful metaphor. Um, but that's what we are making as game developers, and that's why it's the coolest job in the world. But those things that are constantly changing, those are the systems. And if you zoom out, you can already see that picture in the air. So thinking about your systems is zooming out and seeing how behind the scenes, how everything connects.
Okay, Joe. So I want to spend a little bit of time and actually talk about practical implementation, right? Again, I think, like I said, over the course of this podcast and even before just doing the research, I was like, all right, there's a very clear use case for a greater tool, because it's just like, this is, to me, is just something that really feels like the backbone of creating a game. It keeps things simple, it keeps things structured, it keeps things organized. Like that to me just sounds really good, especially because of how complex some games can be. Deck builders, RPGs, very story heavy driven games. So like, kind of when we're looking at just more of the practical implementation side of things, if a team is mid production and they just realize they are way too deep into all of this content chaos, is it ever too late to shift towards a more structured approach?
I don't think so, but it will take more time.
Hmm.
Um, and it doesn't, I think you can always, even if you're deep in production, you can always optimize. It doesn't mean that you will need to shift your entire um, system that you have built in your engine. But I think you can optimize for more structure so that the rest of your production will go more smoothly. And also the parts afterwards, because games don't just stop when you ship, right? Think about that time as well, and keep so the win will also be there. Um, but yeah, it's just it's like cleaning up, um, physically as well. Like if you have a house that is completely overrun by too much chaos, it takes so much time to making it clean, but it can be valuable to just clean up the kitchen. because that's the heart of your house, and the rest can be chaos. But just if we keep the kitchen clean, then it will be better. And maybe you can also see it like that. Just take that one vital part where you see that you struggle with the most, or the people in your team have the most frustrations about, and make that better. And then everybody will be happier.
And then obviously, they see how nice it is to have a clean kitchen. It's like, all right, maybe we clean the garage, right? And then you clean, and then, oh,
Yeah,
actually,
but
maybe
then
we
as
should
a
clean the
producer, you
bedrooms,
say
right?
like, no, 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 we need
Back
to
to it,
make the
back to work,
game. We'll
yeah.
finish this.
Yeah, back to work.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So for a developer, maybe development team out there listening, what's an easy, just like 5 minute self audit that a developer can do, or run today, just to assess if their project and the structure of that project is really fragile?
Count the templates. Count how many scripts do you have, or like classes. And if you have like 10, maybe 20, it's okay. If you have 100, then you have too many, because even these grand strategy games that exist out there don't have 100 templates.
Okay, Jill. So I know we've been talking about, having these improved structured systems, and obviously we have been talking about Grimoire for the last hour. So I would love, if possible, maybe give you an opportunity to jump into the platform and show what an improved system might even look like. Just to give the developers a little bit more context about, exactly what it is that their game could look and feel like as they're building it.
Yeah, thank you so much, because we've been in our cave for the past half year building this, and now is the time to go out there and show, like, yay, this is great. So what I will show you now is just a quick game I made up as an example to fill. So remember that we talked about templates and objects as being the
Mhm.
core of what you need to build. So how we use those is that we start from templates. And remember that small example I gave where you have a quest with challenges and objectives and locations and items. These are in here. These are the core objects of your game, the core templates of your game. And if we would look at, for example, something like a quest, this is what it looks like. Remember, what is a quest? What is that script that our developer will make that makes up every quest that we will make in our game? And then for a quest, you can have a name or a UI description, or an image that will describe that quest. It has a role, an intent, background information. It's triggered by something. It has objectives. And this is like what makes up a quest. And you already see that there are relationships, like objectives in the for a quest are something else that we made. And in that quest, there are related characters as well. And those are also library objects. And the way we see Grimoire is that we try to make a platform that is as much adjustable as possible. So we don't start with templates that are built in. You can edit everything. So you can add every field here and already think in the future, like, okay, the UI description will need to be translated. So I add that this line will need to be translated later on, and that automatically puts that line in the translation management system, the TMS. But because it is connected here in Grimoire, that means that that single line that will have all the context it needs inside of it. So that later, if you have a localizing company, they will be able to look at this UI description, and when they try to translate it, they can find, okay, but this UI description, what is the quest? And which are the related characters? Which are the objectives that describe this? And also I can add documentation to this. write for clarity in small UI space, just prioritize action verbs. You know, if you are a bigger team or you just want to make sure that everybody knows what you expect here, you can, while you come up with it as a design, you can just like, this is what I want you to write here. And then that one, all that information is carried on throughout the entire project. And that means that with this quest, I'll just revert it. I can make a quest now. So I have all these templates here, and then I can make a quest, which is root of the static heart. And I can fill all that information. And I can see like the UI description is to stabilize your unstable core, you must locate, blah, blah, blah. And you also see that there are things in purple, and those are the relationships. This is where the magic happens. I know that I need to find a plant called Fluxroot, and there's an NPC called Sira who is going to talk to me. And I can click that and say like, okay, bring me there. And then I can go to Sira or the Fluxroot and then I can see what that character is all about, or go to that item and see it there. And so everything is connected, and everything is maintained within this single source of truth. And then this is like the core, this is like the templates and the objects and what you get. And I still remember me and Wannes, my developer, seeing this for the first time, is that because we have all that data that is connected, we have a visualization of that as well. So, oh no, yes, this. So this is your game visualized and everything that is connected to each other. And with this, it's not only beautiful, but it can also be practical, because then you can really navigate within those connections. I'm just going to go to root of the static heart. I haven't updated my app, so you can see. So there's something. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to show this. And then the second thing we've done is that, because the teams we worked with, the first teams we worked with also worked with dialogues. And dialogues and objects are also connected. So we've built a dialogue system. So you can really see the dialogues happen here. Just like you have your systems out there like Ink or like Artisy. So it works in the same way, or just like in your engine with nodes. But the thing is that behind those nodes is also the information that is the quests and the documentation. It's all connected in here. So that means that you have your characters that are speaking, and you can click through your content to see which characters they are. And you can also we have variables and starting with that. And then you have just the documents, the documentation. You can still write like you write in your Google Docs, but everything is connected to all the other things.
Cool.
So you see what is referenced and what not. So
And
you
like
see in this
someone could be.
document, sorry?
Oh, I was gonna say, like, someone could be looking at at a quest, but then from there jump in and view like someone could be looking at a character, but then click one thing and it brings them to their document that has the entirety of the quest, or what other quests is that character part of, or you know what I mean? It can
Yeah,
you can kind of see everything interconnected there.
yeah. You navigate through the content, and so yeah, you just like writing as a game designer, and then you start building that thing, and then you see what is connected. Like in this world overview document, I see that I mentioned Sira, my character, and I mentioned this location. And if I click on that location, this location opens up, and I can go deeper again and again and again.
Cool.
So
You see
yeah, this is
how
what we're
how
doing.
many quests take place in that location, or how many
Yeah,
items are in that location, right? Like
yeah.
everything is all kind of connected together.
And because this is one platform for the entire team, it's not only as a game designer or producer or developer that's handy, but it's also handy as, for example, if you're a level designer and you are in engine making that level and you just have your documentation next to you, like, okay, in this spot, who needs to be where do I need to put every NPC, and why are they there, can help you also say like, yeah, but I'm going to put them on that ledge there because then they will, if you come into that space, they will seem more aggressive or something like that, because
Mhm.
you know your designer wants them to feel aggressive because you know, because you have the documentation next to you.
Mhm.
Because, and before, if you wouldn't have that, you wouldn't know that as a level designer, as a world builder, because that's what I spoke about with the unknown unknowns. There's so much going on in the head of the designer that they try to make it as clear as possible, but sometimes they just forget mentioning things, or they have mentioned it like 2 months before, and you haven't remembered it. This is where it's like your external brain.
Mhm.
And then also it's really handy if you start translating things, because then
Yeah.
you have all that text, you can translate it, um, and it also keeps on being connected. And then later on you can connect this with your translating tool, and your translators can have that as well. Um, so yeah, that's the core of what I'm making.
Very awesome. Very, very awesome. I love it. Again, when you know, from talking to it to being able to see it and just seeing the real world implementations and
Yeah,
implications of having something is really sweet.
and it's really nice to see uh, teams working with it and having user interviews and asking like how are you using it and how can we improve it, and see their happy faces. So it's also maybe a shout out to everybody listening. I don't know when you are listening, but if this is the first half of 2026, because we just launched, um, we are offering onboarding and implementation and support for the first half year for free. So what you said before, like what is the cost of implementing structure? Well, we got you covered.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Again, everyone go check it out. Obviously, in the description, I'll be linking not just Jill's information to connect with her, but also to go and you know, check out the platform, see if it would be right for you, your team, for your game. Because it looks pretty sweet. And again, so the your platform also connects into Unity. It connects into the actual system as well,
Yeah.
or is it more standalone?
No, we sync with we're engine agnostic, which means that I didn't show you, but which means that we make code, we make JSON files if you want, but we can also link to your game engine and have hot reloading. So you just update it in Grimoire and it changes in the engine. This is what we're building. Yeah.
Awesome, Jill. Okay, so to wrap things up, I like to end off every single one of my episodes with what I like to call play it forward. And from there, the main thing is that I ask every single one of my guests to highlight or shout out an indie game, an indie studio, or just someone that you feel deserves more attention. So, Jill, who would you like to shout out today?
It's not I it's not just one game studio I want to mention, but it's a co-working space I work in. I work in Ghent in Belgium, and just this summer a co-working space started there, and with 5 teams right now. And I want to shout out to every one of them because we're a remote team and I'm a social animal. So being around them as a single person, what is just has made my life, my work so much nicer. And it's also so nice to see them creating their games and having the privilege to see it up close. So shout out to my 4 teams of colleagues, and the biggest team is tovenaar, which is magician in Dutch, and they're
Hmm.
making Battlesage, and it's a game about flying, and it's just that's the core. They have like nailed flying so good, and they're transforming it into such a great game, that I'm really eager to play it. Well, I've played it before. That's a cool thing. I
Yeah.
also get to play things. So that's the one. And then the second team is Mantis, and they made Deck of Hounds. And Deck of Hounds is a game about, it's a card game where you play as the haunted house, and it's a system game. So I love it. Um, and then the third one is the game Flotsam by Pyjama Llamas. They released end of last year, and I've known them. We started together in the game industry, so I've known them for a long time. I love the team, and the game is beautiful and also so fun.
That's
And
amazing.
then
And also Pajama Llamas is the best studio name
best
I've
name,
ever heard.
right? The best
That is
name. Yeah,
easily
yeah, yeah.
easily the best name. Jill, Jill, is there anything else that we didn't end up getting to cover today? Anything else that you wanted to kind of wrap up with on your side? Again, anything else that people would just be helpful to know about this entire kind of ecosystem here that we've discussed?
I hope it was clear. If not, or if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Even if you don't want to use Grimoire. I love talking about structuring things. It's a hobby as well. So if I can help out people just by having a quick chat, or have some LinkedIn talks, reach out to me. I love bringing structure to whatever you're building.
That perfectly leads into my final question, Joe. Where can the people find you? What's the best place for someone to reach out and kind of connect with you?
I think LinkedIn is easiest.
Great,
That's where all professionals live, right?
of course.
So that's, and then if you're just curious about the platform Grimoire, just Google usegrimoire.com. That's where you can find us.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And again, all of the links will be in the description, so go ahead and check those out. And Jill, I think that is it, my friend. Congratulations, you are officially a freaking cool indie. This is my little fake gavel that I
Thank you
have
so much.
to lock you in. So congratulations on that. And once again, I really appreciate you coming on, talking to us about systems thinking, talking to us about Grimoire, talking to us about how game developers can take something that can just cause so much headache and frustration and time and money, and be able to ideally consolidate that into a nice streamlined system that, although it's streamlined, that does not mean it is not complex, and it is not just easy. So Jill, thank you for that. Once again, everyone who is listening, go ahead, check out Grimoire, connect with Jill. She has some great posts over on LinkedIn, and always talking about this space here. And lastly, congratulations on launch. Again, I know it's a lot of work has gone into the platform, so being able to get it out into the public, getting people on, getting it actual, that final tangible feedback is such an amazing element of this whole building experience. So once again, thank you, Jill, for jumping on. Congratulations again, and to all of our listeners, keep being awesome, keep building, and we will see you in the next one. Bye now. All right, Joe, we did it. Before
Oh
I
my
hit
God.
stop,
I feel like I just like blah 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 blah.
no, you're great.